properly? Okay, great. This is such a zchus to be here. It's a zchus to be here just in general. When I was thinking about what to speak about, my mind instantly flashed back around 30 years when I was a counselor here in Camp HASC. I was here as a counselor 91, 92, 93, a little while ago. And I remember even back then, this camp was not even close to as developed as it is now. But Baruch Hashem, there were Rabbanim, not so many from Eretz Yisrael, but Rabbanim from around. We're good? No? Okay. There were Rabbanim from various places in New York who would come and they would visit and they would speak to us. And I remember distinctly a certain Rav who gave out the message first before he came, like a week before he came, and said, well, what do you want me to speak about? And I remember there was a resounding answer. And everyone said, please don't speak about chesed. Everyone comes up here and tells us that we're such balei chesed, and chesed is so important. Please, anything but chesed. So I'm not going to speak about chesed. You know what I mean? But I did want to speak about something that's connected to the parsha that I thought really would have chashivas for all of us. So it's Parshas Matos Masei this week, longest parsha of the year. And in this parsha, at the very beginning, Bnei Yisrael are situated on the other side of the Yarden. It's really only a few short months before they're about to cross into Eretz Yisrael. They're getting ready, they're getting set up. It's really on the verge. And at this point in time, a somewhat unexpected thing happens. The tribes of Reuven and Gad come to Moshe. And they say to Moshe, you know, we understand we're supposed to cross into Eretz Yisrael. We're supposed to get our nachala there. That's where we're supposed to inherit. But you know what? We're going to stay here. We like this side of the Yarden. We've got a lot of sheep. This is a good grazing land. We want to stay here. Moshe gets upset, understandably, but it all works out in the end. I'd like to point out something that I think is so interesting and so important. There's a way that they phrase their request, so delicate, I'd like to make a diuk here. And the Kli Yakar points out something unbelievable. Let me quote you the pasuk. They said, Ki lo ninchal itam me'ever le'Yarden v'hala. We are not going to inherit with them, with the other tribes on the other side of the Yarden. Ki ba'a nachlatenu elenu me'ever ha'Yarden mizracha. Listen to the language. Because our portion has come to us on the eastern side of the Yarden. Our portion has come to us. And the Kli Yakar points out something. Watch the language. He says, watch how they're phrasing it. It came to us. It just happened that way. We've got sheep. There's a lot of pasture here. It happened. That's the way it goes. So we have no choice. We're going to be on this side of the Yarden. We know it's not optimal. It's not great. But you know what? It just happened. And what the Kli Yakar is pointing out is what was the first and the biggest mistake of Reuven and Gad. It was that they were complacent. They were passive. They said, this is just the way it worked out. So that's what it is. They accepted the mediocrity of their situation, even though they didn't have to. They could have been more. They could have crossed into Eretz Yisrael. They could have had a portion in Eretz Yisrael proper. But you know what? Our inheritance came to us, and that's the way it is. And you know what the truth is? It's so interesting because it's very much similar to the Miraglim. If you remember from the Parsha, Moshe compares them to the Miraglim. He said, you are disheartening Bnei Yisrael. You're going to dishearten them and cause them not to want to cross into Eretz Yisrael, just like the Meraglim did 40 years ago. I want to show you something so similar that the Meraglim said. When the Meraglim come back from touring Eretz Yisrael, listen to what they said. They said, V'sham ra'inu et hanefilim b'nei anak. We saw the Nephilim, the children of giants. And now, here we go. Ready? V'nihi be'einenu kechagavim v'chein hayinu be'eineihem. And we were in our eyes like bugs, like locusts, and so too were we in their eyes. Listen to that language. We were in our eyes like locusts, and that's the way they saw us too. What do we see that the Miraglim did? Just like Reuven and Gad. They saw themselves. What happens first? First they say, we saw ourselves as locusts. We saw ourselves as small. We saw ourselves as weak and powerless. And so too we were in their eyes. So we see here, there's another parallel between Reuven and Gad and the Meraglim 39 years earlier. Both of them, why were they not able to enter Eretz Yisrael? Why were they not able to inherit Eretz Yisrael? Because they saw themselves as weak. They saw themselves as incapable. And they said, we just can't. It's not my fault. I wish I could, but I can't. And then they didn't. And what we're learning now from this, if we put together the Miraglim from the beginning of the 40 years and Reuven and Gad from the end of the 40 years, is exactly that point. That if we want to achieve something, if we want to conquer Eretz Yisrael, if we want to achieve greatness, we cannot see ourselves as locusts, as bugs, as weak, as incapable. We are capable of more. And Parshas Matos Masei is there to teach us that every one of us can accomplish great things if we try. When humans are first created, way back in Parshat Breshit, famous line, Hashem says to the angels, Na'aseh Adam b'tzalmenu kidmutenu. Let us make humans in our image and in our form. And the Sforno says there something unbelievable that we always have to remember. He said a little bit it's our image, right? Because we're kind of like, humans are kind of like angels, right? But says the Sforno, he says, Ubiksat yidameh ha'adam lakel yitbarach. He says, however, remember, humans are actually better than angels, stronger than angels, more powerful than angels. How so? He says, because we have choice. And what does it mean to have choice? It means you can control your destiny. You should not feel like locusts. You should not feel like bugs. You are not an animal. An animal cannot control their destiny. But we have to remember that we are capable of great things if we believe in ourselves. And I want to just point out, I know that some of you have going through your mind now a little bit of the very, very complicated relationship between bitachon and hishtadlus. Faith in Hashem, Hashem is guiding our path, and putting in effort. And that is complicated. And it's not even certainly not for a 10 o'clock shiur after a long, long, hard day of work that you've put in. But whatever the relationship between bitachon and hishtadlus is, we all agree that in spiritual matters, in terms of your achievements, hishtadlus is everything. You have the abilities to achieve great things. I remember my first day with campers here in Camp HASC in 1991. I was assigned, for some reason, quite a challenging bunk. And on that first bus ride, do you guys still go back and you take the bus up with them back here? I happened to have sat with an extremely challenging camper. And by the end of the bus ride, who apparently his parents did not clip his nails before the bus ride. And by the end of the bus ride, my hands, the backs, they probably wouldn't do this in you guys, that the backs of my hands were bleeding. Like really, I had like multiple, and I thought to myself, what have I gotten myself into? What?
I picture where Rosner sat in the dining room.
Razel was a waitress my first summer here, so just to give you a feeling of how old I am.
I'm trying to think which camper that was. Don't say it.
Better not to know. It was 30 plus years ago. And I bet every one of you on your first days here thought to yourself, can I really do this? Am I really capable? And I bet many of you had that chalishut hadat, that weakness. Maybe it's not for me. Maybe I've overstepped my abilities. But you're here. And you've done great. And you've accomplished great things. And you only accomplish those great things when you push yourself and you believe in yourself because you can. And the truth is, as all of you proceed in life, balancing all the many things that you're going to want to balance in terms of Torah, your families, work, life, everything. And sometimes we feel, I can't. I just can't daven shachris in the morning. My work responsibilities are too great. I just can't find time to learn Torah. And I am here to tell you that don't be a locust in your eyes. Yes, you can. You guys are great. And you can achieve great things. Don't be like Reuven and Gad. Don't be like the Meraglim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu believes in you, and you need to believe in yourselves. Amazing. Last week's Haftorah, the first of the Tlata de Puranuta, the three negative Haftorahs of the 3 weeks, is the story of Yirmiyahu HaNavi. The Hakdasha of Yirmiyahu, his first prophecy. And I'm sure some of you learned about it in high school or in seminary, wherever. And Yirmiyahu, when he is first assigned to be enough, he says, please Hashem. He says, Aha, Hashem Elokim. Hine lo yadati daber kinar anochi. I don't know how to speak. I'm just a young person. I can't do it. Vayomer Hashem Elai. Al tomar na'ar anochi. Do not say I am a child. Ki al kol asher eshlachacha telech ve'et kol asher atzavcha tedaber. Because everywhere I send you, says Hashem to Yirmiyahu, you will go, and everything I command you, you will be able to speak. Sometimes, Yirmiyahu, can you imagine what it must have been like? The Churban is about to happen. They're just a few years before the destruction. And Hashem tells Yirmiyahu, oh, your job is to give out a lot of negative information to everybody. Yirmiyahu turns to Hashem and says, this job, it's too hard for me. I can't. I'm a na'ar. I'm just a kid. I can't. And Hashem says, no. You don't need to know how you're going to do it. You don't need to figure out every detail in advance. You don't need to plan every moment. Do your best. Push yourself forward. Do it. And Hashem will take you the rest of the way. Yesterday, I'm here in America, really just more on a pleasure trip. I don't know what you call that, with my kids. And yesterday I went with my 2 sons to many, I'm sure some of you have done this, I feel like this is a classic day camp kind of thing, to one of these huge rope parks way out in Long Island. And this was the first time that one of my sons had done anything remotely to this, my 7-year-old. And, he's doing sort of like the easiest version. And I didn't climb up there because I'm middle-aged, so I don't do that anymore. But I can. And he's like, these things, you have the clips, and I'm sure some of you clip them in, you move, and this. And he gets to one of these rope thingies. And he's on like a wooden thing and walking across it. And he just stopped. He just stopped. He froze. And he said, I can't. And he literally for like 5 to 10 minutes, it was a good thing there wasn't like a line behind him. He just stood there frozen. And I'm sitting on the ground, and I'm saying, no, you can. You can do it. He said, I can't. And I remember thinking to myself, because of course this is what I do as a parent. I'm thinking, what a great metaphor for my shiur this is going to be. Because he's up there. He's hooked in. He can't fall. He's all clipped. If he falls, he won't fall. Right? You slip down 3 inches. He's not going to get hurt. And he thinks he can't. But I know he can. It's not that hard. But because he's never done it before, he can't. He thinks he can't. But he did. Not only did he, in the end, after much pushing and prodding from my part, but at the end of the day, he said that was the most amazing thing. And this is what I want to add on now. I want to tell you a story of the Chazon Ish. A young man in yeshiva came to the Chazon Ish, one of the Gdolei Ador, and said, you know what, I'm just not having joy in my avodas Hashem. I'm not having sipuk hanefesh. I don't feel that connection to Torah and mitzvos. What can I do? The Chazon Ish went to him and said, this is what I want you to do. Buy yourself a pair of tzitzis. But instead of going to the store, there's 2 ways you can buy yourself tzitzis. Either you go to the store and you buy your tzitzis and you put them on and all good. The other thing you can do, maybe some of your brothers or whoever have done this in the past, is that you buy the beged, the garment, and you buy the strings, and then you go home and you start tying and winding and da-da-da-da-da. And it takes a long time, trust me. Tying 1 pair of tzitzis can take each corner can take 10 minutes. So that's a good 40 minutes that you put into it. Said the Chazon Ish, I want you to tie your own pair of tzitzis. The boy said, I've never done that. You'll learn. It's complicated. You can do it. The Chazon Ish said that when you wear those tzitzis, which you assembled with your own 10 fingers, then you will experience a deep sense of joy. What was the Chazon Ish saying? This sense of accomplishment, that's what's going to bring you real simcha in life. We don't get simcha from keeping things easy. We don't get simcha from being like Reuven and Gad. We don't get simcha from being like the Miraglim. When did my son feel joy? When he accomplished something that he thought he couldn't, but he did, and he did it, and he felt good about himself. And every one of us needs to remember that. When you accomplish something hard, when you go beyond your capabilities, that's when you feel a real simchat chayim. That's why learning Torah brings such simcha, because you are doing something that you thought you couldn't. 9 days coming up, okay? And I'm sure in camp, actually someone mentioned it already, they're going to do lots of siyumim, okay? It's very hard to cook milchiks all meals in a summer camp, totally understandable. So they're going to have a siyum, and the siyum, according to the Ramah, has the status of a sudas mitzvah. Okay, why? Why does a siyum have the status of a sudas mitzvah? The Chavos Yair, an important parish on the Shulchan Aruch, says as follows. Where does the simcha, we have lots of mitzvos in life. Not every mitzvah gives us a sudas mitzvah. You put up a fence around your roof, you don't make a sudas mitzvah. Why does a siyum generate an ability to make a sudas mitzvah, says the Chavos Yair? It's not just the mitzvah. It's the simcha that comes along with that accomplishment that gives the meal a status of the sudas mitzvah. It brings you that simcha. When you make a siyum on a whole masechet, on a whole sefer, that's simcha. So again, Reuven and Gad, they were selling themselves short. Because not only did they lose the opportunity of accomplishment, they lost the opportunity of the simcha that comes along with this. The Rambam writes in Hilchos Tshuva that when we look at ourselves, he writes, a person should not entertain the idea that at the time of man's creation, HaKadosh Baruch Hu decrees that we are righteous or decrees they are wicked. He says it is untrue. Every person, writes the Rambam, every person, Kol Adam Ra'ui Leo Liot Tzadik K'Moshe Rabbeinu. Every one of us can be a tzaddik like Moshe Rabbeinu. Says here's the punchline, Elahu me'atzmo u'me'dato notel le'ezo derech shirzeh. It is you, your opinion, your knowledge that will lead you into that. Baruch Hashem, many of you were in Eretz Yisrael in Tiferet this past year. And I think that every one of us understood that when we put in effort in terms of assisting Klal Yisrael in the war that we are currently engaged in, the more effort we put in, the more we felt good about ourselves, and the more simcha it brings along. Parshas Nachamu, coming up, another Haftorah, coming up very soon. Says the Navi Yeshayahu, Lama Tomar Yaakov Utadaber Yisrael. Yaakov, why do you say Nistara Darki Me Hashem, that my ways are hidden from Hashem? V'kovei Hashem Yachalifu Koach. Those who hope for Hashem, Hashem will give them renewed strength. Ya'alu Aver Kanesharim, they will fly like the eagles. Yarutsu v'lo yigau, yelchu v'lo yiafu. When you feel like you can't, remember, you put in the minimal effort, and Hashem will take you the rest of the way. Amazing. I want to close with one more story about a different set of Meraglim. From last week's Parsha, actually. One pasuk. Everyone glosses over this pasuk and this Rashi. It should be inspiring. If you remember from last week's Parsha, from Pinchas, Bnei Yisrael conquer the lands of Sichon and Og, right? These two tremendous kings, powerful armies. And Bnei Yisrael conquer them. And there's one pasuk at the end of the Parsha, so subtle, but so amazing. It says in this Parsha, after the battle is fought, Vayishlach Moshe l'ragel et Ya'azer. Moshe sent some more spies to check out the land of Ya'azer. That was apparently a land, a section of this, that had not been conquered. Vayilkedu b'noteha vayoresh et ha'amori asher sham. And these spies conquered the cities and inherited the Emori who was there. Rashi explains as follows, an unbelievable thing. Moshe sent the spies to spy. What does a spy do? He looks, he checks it out, he gives a report, he gives advice. Says Rashi, unbelievable. This set of Miraglim said to themselves, we are not going to be like those Miraglim. Those Miraglim 40 years ago, who were weak, who said they can't, who said none of us can. Let's go back to Mitzrayim. We're going to show that we can. So what did these Miraglim do? They didn't bring back a report. They didn't even bring back a good report. They just conquered it themselves. They said, he says, Lo na'aseh karishonim. We're not going to do like those first Miraglim. Bituchim anu bekoach tfilato shel Moshe Rabbeinu lehilachim. We have faith in the power to fight. And they just conquered it themselves. And this is exactly the land that Reuven and Gad later wanted. Notice, by the way, guys, how much of everything that I've said today has to do with Eretz Yisrael. And it just shows us, and I feel like we see this in our day and age. The existence of Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael is a pella. Shouldn't happen. We're this little nation coming off the heels of the Holocaust. How could we be doing this? And yet it did happen. And every generation, we survive, we thrive, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us the koach not only to hold on to Eretz Yisrael, but to succeed even more and more. Ladies, Parshas Matos Masei teaches us that we can accomplish great things. Every one of us. I want to give you, each one of you, a bracha. Just as over the course of this summer, I know that every one of you has had moments of doubt, but I know that every one of you has had even more moments of great accomplishment and great simcha in that accomplishment. I want to give each and every one of you a bracha to continue in those accomplishments, to continue believing in yourselves. And may you continue to accomplish great things here and in the future as well. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a zchus to be here.